This is for Dr. Cavallo. Inflation measurement, inflation measurement weighting is very important. How can we collect these weights online? I mean, the amount of products that are being purchased within a basic basket of products. I think it is only one way. I will try to get in touch with him and then we can ask your question again. It's for Mr. Juan Manuel. It is not clear for me what are the limits to treat or interpret video data. What is the state of the art of this type of technology? Something that I would be interested in ask you is if I want to recognize the movement of, for example, the movement of my arm and not that of the body. Is it possible to do so, for example? I think those were the first types of movement that were identified. It is easier to identify a person, even for the way in which they walk, than their face. For example, when I present face recognition, I clearly say it is face detection, not identification, because identification is very difficult. This time, when working with small universes, we managed to do so. We have 5 employees, and if we want to know at what time somebody left, that is something we can do. We did experiments in which we have put a camera on the top looking down. We make people walking there, and it is highly determining, and actually the movements of the arms and legs is something that has been very well developed. Just a comment and a question for Jose Luis. I think that several statisticians here would disagree with your statement that statistics has always existed and that the new thing we have to do with big data is to build predictive models. I think that predictive models have taken place for a long time in statistics, but I think that the challenges are different in nature. My question would be, how much, what has been the response of students at your master's program? Well, we have had a lot of requests, and of course there's the debate of whether statisticians. Well, I think you are right when you're speaking about the role of statisticians, but I think the difference now is the size of the algorithms that have to be used now in order to solve big data problems. Well, for example, doing a logistical regression with a lot of data is not trivial. Building a vectorial support machine with a lot of data is not trivial. It's a matter of research. So in that field, there's still a lot to do. And I think that it is there where difficulties and challenges arise. That is the reason why us at the master's program are using Amazon's resources, no packages, no ready-mades. And the students try to do their thing in Hadoop and create their virtual machines. And I think in that environment is where we can find important challenges. I work at the area of numeric optimization, and it is clear that that area has been nourished by big data problems. And it has been important for the people at big data, the contribution of those that do robust algorithms, that do fast algorithms in this field. That aspect, I believe, is essential. Also, the optimization community at this time is alert to regression methods based on descent by coordinates. The methods of descent by coordinates were old and were developed in the early 70s. However, these methods now are becoming relevant in the context of big data because they are scalable, they are they can be parallelized and they have properties that make them extremely useful for big data. On the response of the students has been important. Our limitation is the profile. A lot of people are interested, but they do not have the right profile. So we cannot do a 5-year, 3-year master's program to educate students with a capacity of doing this type of work. Response has been important, however, we really have to choose to handpick those that have a strong profile. Thank you, Doctor. My question is for Mr. Cavallo. I do not know how his last name is pronounced. Can you hear me now? Well, first, congratulations, Alberto. It's a really good piece of research. So I have a question about a way in which you assemble your research teams at MIT on these topics, because evidently the insight from you, for example, comes from what happened in Argentina with prices and so on, but I wanted to know if you are also integrating or including other specialists to develop this software or these robots that go online looking for prices, or if you on your own or other MIT economists have these abilities. What is happening in the world of research? Groups from different disciplines are being assembled to strengthen a single project, or are specialized profiles being developed?
Sí,
Thank you.
no, sin duda. Nosotros, el equipo que
Yes,
tenemos,
undoubtedly,
una de
us
las
and
ventajas
our
más
team,
importantes que
one of the
tiene es que
advantages of
tenemos
our team
gente que se dedica, que
is
tiene
that we have
conocimientos muy técnicos,
people with very technical
tecnológicos, de cómo
knowledge
utilizar este tipo de software, cómo crear este tipo de
how to
software.
create this type of
Y
software,
tenemos
and we
economistas.
also
Básicamente el equipo se
have
divide en dos. Tratamos de buscar gente
well,
que
Morilla,
pueda
we are
tener
trying
ambos
to find
tipos de skills.
ways, well, I'm trying to find people that have different
Detectamos
types of
entonces una
skills.
persona que tiene mucha facilidad para la tecnología y era
We,
estudiante de
we
doctorado,
have we
digamos,
have a
porque el
person that
estudiante
was
tiene tiempo de sobra y se pasó
hanging
como
for
9 meses
technology and some extra time,
viendo y
and
aprendiendo
spent
cómo se
9 months
podía usar
learning
esta
and finding out
técnica
how these techniques could
para
be applied
capturar, pero
to
lo considero
capture.
que lo mejor
However,
es armar un equipo que
the best thing to do is
tenga
to assemble a team
gente
that already has
que
people
combine
that
y
match
los
at
especialistas en cada uno de los
in
temas.
well, to have
Lo que nos
specialists on each
sorprende
topic.
mucho es
What is really
que
surprising for us,
lo que yo noto mucho en
or
los
what I notice a
proyectos
lot
Big
in
Data es que
big
la
data
gente
projects
tiende a
is
tirarse
that
demasiado
people
por el lado tecnológico y
tend
cree que este es
to
un tema
go a
tecnológico y
lot
la
more
actividad
on
de
the side of
gama.
technology,
Y
believing
esto
that this is a
creo que es un
technological
error.
issue, issues
Por
regarding
el motivo de que nosotros fuimos
the amount of
exitosos en
data.
la
But that is a
measurement
mistake. The
índice
reason
es
why we
porque
were successful in the
sí,
measurement
tenemos
of these
una
indexes is
tecnología
yes,
muy
because we
buena,
have very good
pero
technology.
básicamente somos
But
economistas
basically, we are
que desde
economists
el punto de vista de la estadística
and
nos
people
preocupamos
that,
mucho por
from the
temas
standpoint of
como
statistics, are
qué
a lot
exactamente qué
are very
vamos a
much
poner en la
concerned about
canasta,
what
qué peso
we're
vamos a
what the
utilizar,
products we're going to use
cómo
for the
vamos a
baskets,
limpiar la
what weights are
data
we
y
going
ese
to use,
tipo de
how are we
cosas. Y
going to
no es
clean the data, and so on.
simplemente un approach de decir,
It is
bueno,
not simply an
agarramos
approach of
toda la
saying, well,
data
let
que
us go and
disponible,
offload
hagamos un
all
tecnológico
available
y
data
algo va a
to
salir.
make it
Yo
very
creo que
technological,
eso es
and
un
then,
error y
well,
lo veo
something will come
bastante
out.
en empresas que
That is not
intentan
the case.
aplicar
That would be a
este tipo
mistake.
de
But
cosas con Big
I
Data.
see that sort of thing
Las
happens a lot
aplicaciones
with
tienen
big
que
data.
tener siempre
Applications
que
have
sepa sobre el
to, well,
objetivo
need
final,
people
¿no?
that know about
¿Para qué se
the
está
ultimate
tratando de
goal,
usar esta nueva
why
tecnología?
that new
Sin duda, los
uh,
equipos
data is
multidisciplinarios
sought
son
to be used. Of
importantes.
course,
Nosotros en
multidiscipline
MIT
teams are
entrenamos a
important.
muchos
Us
estudiantes
at MIT
en ese
educate a
sentido,
lot of students in this
y obviamente
regard,
gente muy
and
técnica
obviously
y también números economistas, y
they
tratamos
are
de
very good
crear
technicians
equipos
and economists, and we try
multidisciplinarios,
to
una cosa
create
nueva por esta tecnología.
multidiscipline teams. Another question for
Bueno,
Jorge, please,
la había formulado
or for
antes,
Alberto.
pero
I have
creo que me
asked it
atrasé.
before,
Doctor
but
Cavallo,
Dr.
quisiera
Cavallo, I
preguntarle, en la metodología de
like to ask
intervención
you,
de la
at the
inflación,
inflation
los métodos
measurement
tradicionales son muy
methodology, in
importantes
traditional
los
methods,
ponderadores de cantidad de los productos. En la
the
metodología que usted
quantity
está
methods of products are,
utilizando,
or weights are very
desapareció
important in
esto,
terms of the quantity of products.
o
Is
cómo
that
lo
relevant
está,
in your studies, or how are you
cómo reemplazan esos ponderadores.
doing this? How can these
Con estos temas de
weights,
nivel de
how are
agregación,
these
estos
weights
coeficientes
replaced?
agregados, básicamente usamos las mismas
When these are
metodologías que
disaggregated,
usamos
we use
los
basically the same
estadísticos.
methodologies that
Hablamos
the
de
statisticians
algo como la
use. For
leche
example, if we
o
discuss
algún
something
tipo
like
de leche.
milk or a type of milk,
nosotros hacemos un promedio geométrico
We do a
ponderado de todas las
geometric
variedades que
weighted average
tenemos,
of all the varieties available.
no ponderado, o sea que no
No,
hay
not well,
quesos
not
ahí
weighted. We do
muy
not have weights
desagregados,
at
¿no?
that
Bastante transformados
disaggregated
todos.
level. All
La
products
diferencia
basically
es
go
que
there. But the
solemos
difference
tener
is
una
that
variedad
we
de productos mucho más
tend
grande.
to have
Pueden
a
haber,
larger
como
set
tenemos
of
básicamente
products.
de estos grandes retailers, todas las leches que
Since we
tienen
have all the
disponibles en
types of
todos sus
milk available
tamaños,
from
en
all
todas sus
retailers in
variedades, en
all
todas
its
sus
formats, all
marcas,
varieties, and all
generalmente a esos niveles
brands,
bien desagregados los
usually at
promedios
these
se construyen
disaggregated
en
levels,
base a
averages
muchísimos
are
más
constructed
productos o
based on a
variedades de
lot more
productos. Ahora,
products, a
cuando
lot more
empezamos a
product
agregar
varieties.
a niveles más
When we
altos,
start aggregating at
entonces
higher
nosotros no
levels,
tenemos ponderaciones individuales o
we
no
do
tenemos
not
propia la
have
información, pero utilizamos la información que
average
los mismos
weights, but
institutos de estadística
we use the
proveen y
information
utilizan.
provided
O
by
sea
the
que, por ejemplo, en
statistics institutes.
Argentina, si la
For
comida
example,
es
in
alrededor
Argentina, if the
del
food is
30%,
around
ese es el peso
30%,
que
then
nosotros
that
vamos
is
a
the
usar
weight
para
we
la
would
comunidad,
use
en principio, en nuestra canasta.
for the
Obviamente
community
va a
at the
haber que
beginning of
haber,
our of
hacer
that
ajustes porque hay
basket. Obviously,
características de
adjustments
cada
will be needed.
online diferentes, pero en
Because there are
principio eso
features
es
that
lo
are
que vamos a
different
utilizar. Y por eso
on
yo decía
online
que
prices.
la gran
That is what we
innovación
would
no
use. This
es
is why
en
I'm
términos de
saying
la
that
forma en
the
la que
important
hacemos la
innovation has not
estadística o la
a lot to
ecuación
do
o
with
los
the
pesos,
way in which we
sino
do the
básicamente
equations
en
or
función de
how
una
we assign the weights,
alternativa
but it's
de
about
datos.
using an
Pero
alternative
sin
data source.
duda, el tratamiento, las
Undoubtedly, the
ponderaciones son un
treatment
poquito
and
más importantes
weights
de los cuales
is a
tenemos que
very
preocuparnos
important
un poco
topic that
porque
we do not
evitar que
neglect
los usemos correctamente y usamos
to make sure that
información de
we are
los
using that
institutos de
information
cómputo
correctly.
en la medida de lo posible.
And we use that information from statistical institutes whenever possible. We have three more questions. I would like to just make a remark. Around 8 years ago, I was at IBM as a business research specialist, as global research business specialist. We were a global group of researchers. We had people around the world specialized in the countries they were based on, but also different. I am finance, others in economy, others in superconductors. So this about big data would be more efficient if we were to create work groups, not having a single person without specialties, but individuals that are specialists working in collaboration, because that is a very efficient. I witnessed that with my own eyes. It is very helpful. So I am just mentioning this. And a comment to Juan Manuel Watson. I think that face recognition technology is like a knife with which you can make a beautiful sculpture. You can help recognize individuals that have been abducted, that have disappeared, but I wonder if it could also be used for the wrong reasons. For example, when personal data is being used to target certain individuals without the permission of these people that are being observed. So I wonder if there are legal limitations for the use of that technology. Yes, of course, as all technologies, it can be used for the right or the wrong reasons. In Mexico, we are behind and on the legal aspects of video. In Europe, the video can stay for 24 hours, can be preserved for 24 hours, and then it has to be deleted. And of course, it can be used for the wrong reasons. The laws will be enacted little by little, but what is important is that information is solely accessible for those that have the right of looking at it, such as, for example, license plate, which is registrations. A lot of mistakes have been made in the country because a lot of people, just because they're in a position of authority, can request information about the license plates, and others would show it to them. That is not the case in Europe. In Europe, a permit is needed to request the license plate information, and also not all individuals can do that. And the other extreme of the spectrum, there is Mexico. For example, in Puebla, there's a website called uh, traffic monitor, and if you wanted to see if you have traffic infraction, uh, then you can input your license plate and you can see the picture of your car. How come I can write down well, enter the license plates of any given individual and see a picture of them? That is outrageous. And in Mexico, the measures have not been taken to make this look as outrageous as it is. Perhaps we do not look at it like that. We go anywhere and see cameras and we do not say anything, but in Europe it is mandatory. There's a sign saying that the videos will be deleted. So your observation is right. Just to supplement, in the federal district, before cameras were installed, there was a law to protect and prevent the cameras to be directed towards specific homes or windows, and people can make sure of that and act accordingly. Thank you very much. I'm Patsy Buran from St. I would like to congratulate all the presenters because you have really nourished us with your experiences and all your research and all your projects. The question I would like to ask is for Mr. Alberto Cavallo because I'm a software engineer. I work a lot more with technology, and I would like to repeat what was said. It is necessary to work with different disciplines to approach people, for example, the people that have a very clear notion, in this case, of the type of information that has to be managed and to contribute with ideas to the technology area, such as in the case of the solution or the project you worked on. And I liked very much that you obtained the data through web scraping, but my question is the challenge that you faced for data quality by extracting all the information. Could you share with us a bit of your experience, any advice you could give us when facing this type of projects? Because I think it is very interesting.
Without a doubt, this is a very important question, and it's a key question in this. When I describe what we do, I have three stages. One is capturing the data, second is cleaning and homogenizing the data, preparing it for statistics, and finally computing it. The capturing of this is the simplest part. Capturing it is data is a commodity. When I started with this 6 years ago, I had to program my first PHPs and my first programs. They were very basic, but in the last years, software that's very intuitive have been developed for people with no technical capabilities to create these robots, and it's becoming a commodity. There are companies dedicated to creating them and to selling them in brute. This isn't the hardest part. This is something that's becoming pretty easy. The best, well, what we need to do is understand what data to treat and well, as we mentioned recently, this is what what we do, and that's why it's important to understand not only the technological part, but statistic and economic parts. And when it comes to understanding of, or just general understanding of what is trying to be measured, the team dedicates efforts to try and evaluate the quality of the data. A reason why we didn't present this in Mexico is because we wanted to collect data for 3-4 years until we reach a point where we say, okay, we can look back, look at the data we have for each of these resellers, and because of its behavior during time, see if it's valuable data or not. We can see the different biases because a certain retailer has certain behaviors that have nothing to do with common behaviors for the sector, etc. All these statistic things must be considered once you have enough data to do this. So this is what, well, for the measurement of this and for most of the data applications, I think would be the hardest part. Um, that this would be the hardest part, obtaining comprehensive information. We have two more questions. Whoever has the microphone, and well, that would be the end.
Muchas gracias. La pregunta
Thank
es
you.
para Andrew.
This question is for Andrew.
Is how is defined the projection of the graph? Is one of
¿Cómo se define la proyección de la gráfica?
and the other is
Y la
if
otra es
topological data analysis
si el
is
análisis
used to
topológico de
analyze
datos se ha usado
dynamics
para
of multidimensional systems.
analizar las dinámicas de un sistema complejo multidinámico.
Yeah, the drawing of the graph.
La parte de
And what
dibujarlo.
method
¿Qué
is
método
for
se
the
utiliza
drawing of the
para dibujarlo?
Yeah.
Esos los hice a partir, pero lo usaron el del paquete allá sí. Es uno gratis, que es mucho menos bonito, digamos, pero hay que, bueno, bueno, tiene que ver con un grupo, tiene que ver con el trabajo de Konstantin Moshaiko en la Universidad de Rutgers, que trabaja en dinámicas discretas y hace, bueno, análisis topológico de datos y han sido muy exitosos en eso. Se ha escrito mucho al respecto, pero es algo muy interesante. También había alguien llamada Sarah Day.
Es una pregunta para Alberto Cavallo, que le pido que levante su mano.
Alberto Cavallo, raise your right hand if you can hear
¿Me
us.
escucha Alberto? Ok.
Sí, no pude escuchar bien la pregunta, si la pueden repetir.
Ok. Va la pregunta. Soy Gerardo Leiva del
I'm Gerardo Leiva of INEGI, and
son dos temas concatenados.
we have
Uno es,
two subjects, one after the
están
other.
haciendo un trabajo
You
para
are
el seguimiento de los
are
precios
you
en
working to
muchos países.
follow up on prices in many
Las
countries?
gráficas que
The
observamos
graphs you are
muestran
showing,
alta
well, they
correlación de los
show a high
precios,
correlation between
digamos,
prices,
oficiales,
official prices
agencias nacionales
of
de
national
estadística,
statistics
las
agencies,
oficinas financieras de la
central
paga
banks,
y los obtenidos
and
online.
those obtained online.
Y sin embargo, si mal no recuerdo, la mayor parte de los países que tenemos en transporte son países desarrollados. En el caso de los
In
países
most
desarrollados,
countries, it's
la parte
the
importante
less
del mercado
we have it
es informal.
for more developed countries, but in the case of low developed countries, there's a high part of of these products of the basic basket which are bought through the informal sector. So how can you obtain those prices as well? How are you facing this? And with regards to the first question, you are doing massive work, which well, the team with which you work is just a few people. How many people are working on this? Because the total of people is lower than the number of people we have at the statistics agency for a single country. So do you consider that traditional methods for price measurement, official ones, are like an animal in extinction because of the opportunities presented by new technologies? So if you were in charge of a national statistics agency in the part of prices, INEGI, for instance, what would be the combination, the way in which you would combine traditional methods with online methods, which you're currently handling to obtain the most out of both? The first question has to do with online and offline experiences in the informal market. True, we can't monitor informal markets offline. Of the not informal ones, there's empirical questions to consider about online ones, to whether online prices behave differently to the offline ones. I think it has to do um, price levels and price changes. What we're trying to measure is price changes. If I go to the corner store, it's possible that it's really expensive. I'm going to find consistently markup with regards to another informal market, perhaps in another part of the city. In practice, what the question is whether this difference is constant a long time, because as long as it's constant and the prices in commerce we see online are, say, 10% higher in terms of price changes, we're going to measure more or less the same. And maybe there's a difference in the inflation rates between formal and informal commerce, but these differences cannot last very long because one of the two sectors has uh, well, one of them is going to have a breakdown eventually. I think it's empirical. It depends on the country we're discussing. We have reasons to think that the evolution of prices in the online sector, in terms of their dynamic and price changes and relative to inflation, we will see things that are different to offline ones, or do we expect them to be similar in terms of levels? In most cases, we experiment. We don't see any differences, and we don't really have a way to measure this except for measuring inflation and comparing it to the online and the offline one. If I had an statistics institute, one of the first things I would do would compare online and compare it to the offline commerces and see if there's any difference. Second question versus two new and old technologies. We have 20 to 25 people. Part of the team is here. Part of it is in Uruguay, and where they have economists and they ask, how do you do the same thing as institutes of us of how do you do the same thing as institutes or ministries of economics? Well, we don't do the same thing. Quality adjustments and other things which I think are important. Well, we don't do from a point which would be important to do. What we do is an approximation to these measurements. If I had an institute for statistics, I wouldn't do it the same as new technologies. I don't know. Well, we're going to have to experiment with these techniques, and part of my academic work is to help the people who want to incorporate this and just to not go on for too long, one of the things I want to say is that there are categories that are well represented online, and well, I speak frequently with the Institute of Economics of New Zealand and in other countries, and I see that in general, statistics institutes say we should use this online data to measure something we couldn't measure. For instance, tickets online. So, um, even if you have online data, you don't really know what to measure. Of airline tickets. So it's not easy to simplify even if you have online data. So what's the first impact on this? Well, on very traditional things such as electronic goods, food, which, well, in countries such as Mexico and others, in Latin America such as mine, there's a huge amount of online data for food. And there it's very simple to capture this information and compare it to the information captured through traditional means. And then it comes to an issue of cost benefit to understand the advantage and disadvantage of each of these methods. So that's why I was saying in the presentation we should understand this as a methodology and an alternative source which is measured and
no como una tecnología que va a
not as a
cambiar
technology that's
totalmente
going
la
to
forma en
change
que se hacen
the
y se
way in
construyen este
which
tipo
we
de
build
estadísticas.
these types of
Es más bien
statistics.
un complemento
It's
a
a
mi visión.
complement in my way of
No me
seeing
quiero
it.
extender
I
demasiado, pero
don't want to
básicamente
go on for too long, but basically that would be it. Thank you, Alberto. It's moment to close this meeting, which has been, of course, very rich for all of us in terms of information. And while we have the documents, we have the references that authors have placed, and well, of course, also the possibility of direct communication, which you may establish via email with the authors. I think we have important issues to discuss, which would have been nice to expand on with the speakers, such as the managing of clusters in the part that has to do with geospatial information. That would have been very important or interesting to learn about. Also, we've discussed transcending multidisciplinarity towards focuses, towards interdisciplinary focuses to face or approaches to face these issues. And from the intervention made by Alberto, it's very clear, at least for me, that this issue of interdisciplinary work requires groups of specialists of diverse backgrounds in which the people being formed by the ITAM will be an important component for the analysis of big data. Also, as a conclusion, we think we may have clarity in the sense that we need to have big questions as well, meaning questions that may be relevant and answered through big data. I'd just like to mention that on behalf of the CONACYT, well, the CONACYT is supporting this initiative by Infotech of creating a laboratory, a national laboratory for the future of the internet, whose basic element would be big data analysis. This is being done together with another national laboratory, which was also authorized by the CONACYT within the CIDE on public policy. This is the for what? That's the question we're asking. And aside from this, the Hale Center, which is a public research center of CONACYT, is working with Infotech, just like CIDE is, to incorporate the component of territorial intelligence. So this is a subject that's alive and well and responds to questions that one of the panelists asked. Yes, there is an interest. Yes, there is a budget. And yes, resources have been recently destined together as well as lectures to incorporate doctors and researchers in these issues. We have nothing but left but to thank the organizers of this meeting, the Infotech, the INEGI, and also the participation of the CIDE. Thank you for your presence. And now let's go to the Angel to celebrate our tie with Brazil.